I am with S. Damodarai, Chairman, National Skill Development Agency, Government of India. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. How can we create a win-win model for the industry to collaborate with the academia in upskilling the graduates?
I think the collaboration between the academic institutions, the industry and the civil society across the country is a must. So, the Government of India has formed this National Skill Development Agency, which has essentially the role of integrating all the schemes of the various ministries in the Government of India and the state skill missions. The role of the industry is to participate in this journey through multiple ways. We have what we call as a National Skill Development Corporation, which is a public-private partnership, where for capacity creation in the industry, we fund them as a debt funding predominantly, encourage innovation, and then the curriculum, the standards, the qualification criteria for a level of job are all put in place, and that is where the industry participation is done. Industry provides the training, industry provides the jobs, industry provides the curriculum and the ways to train people on those curriculum. So, I think it is a very big role and a collaborative role between the government and the private organization.
Capacity provisioning at NSDC has been heavily bent towards the IT and the ITES sector. So, whereas construction and the infrastructure sector has also been hiring at a quite large scale. So, how is NSDC planning to look at those sectors?
We today have 29 sector skill councils, which means these are 29 sectors of the economy where the jobs are needed, whether they are construction, whether they are retail, they are manufacturing, gem and jewelry, leather, health. I think multiple industries which make up the economy of the country is through the sector skill councils we have defined the job roles. We are in the process of completing multiple jobs and the levels at which these jobs make sense, entry level jobs to advanced jobs. We are also saying recognition of prior learning is very necessary. For example, a carpenter, a mason, a plumber, a welder, what is their existing skill, even though they might not have gone to a formal school, but they have been at it for so many years. We are incorporating that also, and the National Skill Development Agency is looking at this National Skills Qualification Framework, where the levels of competency and the curriculum at which these levels of competencies make sense are all being defined as we speak. So, it is going to encompass more sectors, and the 29 sector skill councils almost cover most of the economy, but we will be adding a few more sector skill councils. Construction has a very specific sector skill council, and this is one of the most vibrant in addition to the other sector skill councils. We have had a number of workshops with the construction sector skill council people. It is a combination of the organizations which do the construction. It is a combination of various societies which make up, for example, the plumbing society, the welding society, various construction societies which are there as part of it. So, they are very well represented. I think combination of these is what is going to be very inclusive, and they will participate to make sure skills are very necessary, move people from the unorganized to the organized sector and provide the right wages for the right skills. The UDAN scheme, which is partly done for the Jammu and Kashmir youth, so that they come into the other parts of the country, get skilled. Corporates have already endorsed this, and corporates are hiring people after the necessary skilling. So, it is very unique to J&K. The second one is for the northeast region. Again, it is very necessary because of the lack of facilities, etc. We are encouraging that in a big way. So, I think we will initiate special program for the tribal regions as an example, and we will collaborate with other parts of the various schemes that have been announced or various initiatives that are underway. So, I think it is a collaboration which is going to be the most critical element of anything which we do, so that the scale up is what we have to look at. What are we ultimately aiming for? It is not intermediate activity. At the end of the day, every youth in this country who comes into the job market or wants to become an entrepreneur, there must be an opportunity waiting for him or her. That is our bigger goal.
Could you please throw some light on the hiring trends in India in the coming days?
I think our target for making sure that the employment happens both through the government schemes I talked about and or the private sector participation through the National Skill Development Corporation or in-house efforts which happen as a way of life. I think we are almost targeting in the 12th plan 5 crore of jobs. I think 73 lakhs are going to be done by the National Skill Development Agency through the various ministries and the National Skill Development Corporation this year alone, and then we are going to be scaling it up to 5 crores as we speak. The capacity which we have built through the funding of NSDC to the private providers over the next 10-year period is 78 million as we speak today. This encompasses the 29 sectors which I talked about, but the capacity we have created is for 78 million, but we want to increase it to 150 million. I think retail, healthcare, then IT, then sectors like gem and jewelry, sector like leather, sectors like manufacturing. I think these are all the ones which are very, very job intensive.
Could you please share the discussion that you are on with the Ministry of Labour with regards to the amendment of the Apprenticeship Act?
Yeah, one is we want to increase the number of apprentices from the current 2.4, 2.5 lakhs to 30 lakhs per annum. One of the key enablers of making it happen is the Apprenticeship Act itself, and we need to make sure that apprentices are welcome in the organizations which are ultimately going to be looking at them. The Act, which was very old, we have been in discussions with the Ministry of Labour, but prior to that we have had a collaborative discussions not only with the Ministry of Labour but with the industry associations and the industry itself. When I talk about industry associations, it could be CII, it could be FICCI, it could be ASSOCHAM, NASSCOM, etc., plus the various industries which want apprentices as part of their training and skilling people. Any hands-on experience is absolutely a must before you can say I am skilled or not skilled, and that is what we want to encourage and increase it to 30 lakh people. On one hand, we say there is a demand of 150 million or 200 million or 400 million over the next 10 years or so. So apprenticeships by 30 lakhs, it must be certainly possible, and we must make it very, very friendly and very necessary for the industry to partner in this. Since it has been done through a collaborative effort, and Ministry of Labour has also been very open about it, we are in the process of making sure that the necessary amendments can be done, or even bring in provisions which will make it easier for the industry to take apprentices. I think since it has been a combined collaborative effort, my hope is it will go through once the new government comes into place. If I take an apprentice, I should not be forced to hire them completely. I may have a need based on the cycles of the industry itself that I may want to hire 100 people. I may give apprenticeship training to 200 people. That is very important to make sure that I am not under any violation because I am taking so many as apprentices but hiring only so many people, because the market demand is what I am going to hire. So long as they can be used in any other industry or across the industries, doing a skilling or doing a training is very good. For example, you take the IT industry today. We train or we go to colleges and say that these are the things. Even if you do not want to recruit more than, let us say, 50,000 people or something like that in one corporation, we may skill 100,000 people, we may give inputs into 100,000 people, but then they are available to the market as a whole. So I think provisions like this, where you cannot force an employer to take every apprenticeship that is going to be done to be part of the employment role. It has certain stipulations which says this must be recruited or this percentage must be recruited, etc. We cannot put such straight difficult conditions because the market demands are very necessary. Second, from the apprenticeship perspective, when I go through a hands-on training for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days or whatever it is, I should also be fair to the employee or to the apprentice to make sure that he or she is not exploited at the end of the day. So they must be taken on regular employment as soon as possible once they complete the apprenticeship itself. So provisions like that which make it easier for people to take apprentices, provisions where there are no fixated ideas about hiring and not hiring, and any act that needs a change for incorporating some of these is what we are looking at it. We want to make sure that when I take as an industry any apprenticeship or any number of students who come as apprentices, it is with the clear mandate that I am upgrading their skill and not necessarily guaranteeing an employment. This is the change that we are seeking. We want everybody to be employed at the end of the day. The supply demand gap and the demand side has been done through a number of research through third parties. So automatically a student is made aware through our web portal, websites, everything. These are the disciplines under which there are demands, and these are the kind of skills you need to go through. We think when that is understood, automatically the number of people coming as apprentices will be very close to the number of people that are needed to be employed. So we wanted, the supply demand gap is what we are trying to narrow as much as possible, but that may still result in certain cycles where certain changes may have to be there. So I think appreciating and understanding this is the key, but the critical element where everybody is aligned is every youth must be gainfully employed with the right skill and the right wages.
NSDA is working on a digital platform that would be brought out in a PPP mode. Would you please elaborate on what exactly is the project?
See, we are through the National Skill Development Agencies engaged in creating what we call as a labor market information system. The whole labor market information system is, on one hand, you have got the students who are coming as the supply side with regard to getting the necessary skills, the demand side where they are getting employed once they have the required skills. In between, the kind of people who participate in this whole journey as part of the digital ecosystem are essentially the training providers, content providers, certifying and assessment agencies, and employers, and the students who want to get employed. So anybody who is part of this ecosystem should be part of this labor market information system. And that's the digital platform we want to create over the next 4 or 5 years. We are not going to be waiting for the 4 or 5 years to make sure a huge platform comes up. As elements of this platform get done, they will automatically be available. For example, simple thing like a skills registry. If you or I come and say that I have got these skills and I have been assessed, or I want to be assessed at a level of competency L1 through L10, then we should have a mechanism immediately to make sure that you can be assessed, and once you are assessed and you have passed it or you have been certified at this, you will be incorporated as part of the skills registry. So anybody can see the skills registry to say that, tell me how many carpenters are available at level 3 proficiency, can I just immediately match with the demand which I have for this kind of a competency. So all those things will become available very quickly. So for a student to get certified will become available very quickly. List of all the training providers that are there in the country. If I am an organization which is providing training in retail, then I should know. If I am living in National Capital Region, which are the training providers that are possible for me to go to. Third, what are the sources of funds I can seek for getting loans, for getting some dedicated schemes like the STAR scheme, where certification every beneficiary directly gets to his account or her account based on the test which they take. So I think these are all elements which are available. So we are going to be building evolutionary digital platform, and anything that becomes available immediately will be made available rather than wait for the whole thing to evolve.
The National Vocational Education Quality Framework, NVEQF, the initiative by AICTE, what do you think about that? Is it a ambitious model, given that they are planning to train students in the second half of the hours, like after college hours, everything? So is it a viable model?
See, what we have tried to do is to combine all the frameworks in the country, the National Vocational Education Qualification Framework, which is part of the MHRD, and the National Vocational Framework, which is part of the Ministry of Labour and Employment. Everything will be going to be collapsed to what we call as the National Skills Qualification Framework. I talked about the levels from L1 through L10. The level 1 would be where we introduce at the secondary school level, namely the 9th grade. So 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th in any of the school curriculum will also incorporate vocational education programs. So it will be L1 through L4. Then the students have choices to take the number of hours of credit which they have done and the proficiency and competency certification they have got at L1 through L4 to go to an ITI, to go to a polytechnic, or to go for a BA or BSc programs. The pathways from the vocational education to the general education or general education to the vocational education is what we are trying to do seamlessly through what we call as the National Skills Qualification Framework. This has been cleared by the cabinet. This has been given the responsibility. The responsibility is with National Skill Development Agency, and a National Skills Qualification Committee has been comprised, which incorporates representation from all the ministries, some of the private sector skill councils, so that it is a very collaborative effort to make sure when you say L1, when you say L2, when you say L3, when you say L4, these are all agreed and understood, so that over a period of, let's say, next 5 to 10 years, the country will only talk about I am proficient at this level of competency. It will automatically signify that in vocational education you may be at level 4, but in the general education you may be at L7 because you want to follow the general education direction. Or a carpenter who is a master carpenter may say I am at the L8 level of the carpentry, whereas mathematics, physics and all are at level 3 or something like that. So, this is the way we want it to evolve ultimately.
How many state skill development missions are there in the country now?
I think the numbers, almost every state in the country has a skill development mission, and the thing which we want to make sure is the skill development mission gets the center of attraction or center of focus, whether directly with the Chief Minister of the state or with the designated empowered representatives, could be the Chief Secretary, could be the Minister of Labour within the government, etc., etc. So, the whole idea is make the skill missions across the states very active, because it is in the interest of their own state and their own youth to provide the necessary employment. When you look at the demographic profile of our country, it is not restricted to one region, it is across the country that the demographic profile is there, and if you want to reap the benefit, you must encourage the skills, we must minimize the school dropouts, we must minimize the college dropouts, we must increase the enrollment so that people come into the vocational education or the general education stream. So, if right to education is there, right to skilling, right to making sure that everybody completes what he or she has taken up to a certain level of proficiency is what we are encouraging, and there is no disconnect between the states, the center. Clarity with regard to if a scheme is proposed by a ministry within the central government, how is it understood within the state and how they implement on the ground, because the implementation is through ITIs as an example, through NSDC partners as an example, through private providers who may not seek any funding from anybody. So, we want every one of them to make sure that they understand the competency, the proficiencies, the standards and the qualification packs. Almost all the states have something or the other. I think the speed at which we want to accelerate is what we are looking at once we get on board. Example, the National Skills Qualification Framework, introduction of skills, vocational education as part of the school curriculum. Today Haryana may be ahead, Karnataka may be ahead, Assam may be ahead, but then the other states we want them to start that very quickly within their school system. It requires funds, it requires endorsements, but essentially it is again the head of the state skill mission, like I said, Chief Minister, with his officers or the ministers concerned must push this. So, I think these are some of the states which I mentioned. I have already started pilots, I am already scaling it up, so that we want this to be a way of life across the country.
How many training centers and in how many districts is NSDA functional?
I think I can't name by districts, because I think 128 partners are there, and if I recall almost 8,000 plus training locations, training centers are there through the NSDC alone. This does not include the ITIs. The ITIs are 5,000 plus. Some of them are very, very active, some of them have done a private partnership through Institute Management Committee, etc., by adoption by the corporate sector itself. CII and other organizations have adopted some of the ITIs. Some of them have been rejuvenated through World Bank assistantship. So, it is a journey, so it is continuous reinvigorating of the ITIs also. In Assam, for example, we have done it in Northeast, not only Assam, half a dozen ITIs across all the 6 or 7 states, and then making sure that private participation using existing infrastructure has been done. One of the key elements of our strategy is, if any resource is existing in terms of a building infrastructure, make sure it is utilized by modernizing it rather than rebuilding an infrastructure which is not the right thing to do.
NSDC plans to train 150 million youth by 2022. So, what is the target capacity that has already been commissioned by the body till date?
The target capacity on NSDC is 78 million today, and then we are continuously scaling it up. The number of partners, like I said, are about 120 plus, and then the number of training locations are 8,000 plus. But I think we will certainly make that 150 million. But like we started in the beginning, it has to cover all the sectors and not polarize towards a few sectors.
What is the biggest challenge in upskilling Indian youth?
I think the biggest challenge is awareness, which requires an enormous amount of advocacy. So we're doing it through the news media, we're doing it through television, we're doing it through mobiles. So the access and advocacy of students to know what is possible, what is available, so that my passion is ignited. That's our biggest challenge from a mobilization point of view. From an employment point of view is, as a student graduates or builds that competency, for the industry or entrepreneurship to be encouraged to the students. So what are the other skills that they require? Soft skills, communication skills, I think how to express yourself or your capability. This is something we are integrating into it. So this is again a problem where an industry or a small or medium enterprise may say, I don't know, I can't understand anything. So we have to make sure that it's integrated into the curriculum itself. So I think the biggest challenges are mobilization, and then making sure they complete it once they have been able to be mobilized for the right skill. Because if I get pushed into some skill which I am not interested, I am not going to do a good job of it. I must be going to a skill or learning a skill which is what I want, and then automatically I will find a job also.
The final question would be, what is the objective for NSDA in the coming year, 2014?
I think the objective of NSDA in 2014 is the rationalization of schemes of the various government ministries, making sure all the state skill missions are very active, put the enablers for the labor market information system, then the National Skills Qualification Framework through the National Skills Qualification Committee would become very visible, and partner with NSDC to make sure that the capacity building is increased, and finally the sector skill councils must become very, very active, so that every job role in the country at a certain level of competency is defined. This is our journey, and it's not going to be completed in 2014, but we have made a beginning. We want to see acceleration in these, and it's a continuous process, because if you take environment as a science, number of jobs that are required for green is only getting defined now. So I think when that evolves and when the industry wants those kind of skills, automatically graduates will be there who can take up such skills.
So, would you like to give any message to the industry side?
I think the message to the industry side will be the adoption of standards, adoption of the National Qualification Framework, and paying the right wage for the right skill.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.